It's the top of the hour. You're watching the news on Sansad TV. I'm Teena Jha. Over the next 30 minutes, I'll be getting you the big stories of the day from across India and the world. First, the headlines. Quad holds online meeting in the middle of Ukraine-Russia crisis. External Affairs Minister discusses Ukraine issue with members of Parliament. Opposition expresses solidarity. The government rebuts reports of Indians taken hostage in Ukraine. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla meets parents of students stranded in Ukraine, says government making all-out efforts to bring them back safely. More than 1 million people have left Ukraine so far, says the UN refugee agency UNHCR. Moscow ready for talks with Ukraine. Make in India is the need of 21st century India, says Prime Minister Modi. Asserts that the world is looking at us as a manufacturing power. And voting concludes for the 6th phase in Uttar Pradesh. Key candidates include Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. A quick look at some other events that made news through the day. The Election Commission orders re-poll in 12 polling booths in Manipur on the 5th of March. 19 evacuation flights to bring back 3,726 Indian nationals from Ukraine, says Civil Aviation Minister. The Supreme Court asks Attorney General to help in evacuation of medical students stranded in Ukraine near Romania border. The Apex Court dismisses Loop Telecom's petition seeking refund for 2G license cancellation. IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav to inaugurate 3rd edition of NIC Tech Conclave in New Delhi. Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar briefs his ministry's consultative committee meeting on Ukraine developments. The Union Health Ministry tells states to ensure that no vial of COVID vaccine is wasted. Budget session of Maharashtra Assembly begins amid uproar from ruling and opposition sides. Home Minister Amit Shah chairs high-level committee, approves additional central assistance to 5 states and union territories. And Wildlife Day observed to raise awareness about world's wild animals and plants. The biggest global story first, all the updates from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Well, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said Moscow is ready for talks to end the fighting in Ukraine, but will continue its efforts to destroy Ukraine's military infrastructure. Meanwhile, delegations from both Kiev and Moscow are preparing to hold a second round of talks at the Ukraine-Belarus border. Here's the latest report. A week since Russian forces entered Ukraine, but there is no respite from the shelling. Amid the intensified attacks, Russian forces have taken control of Kherson in the south of Ukraine, the first major city to fall. If Russians capture more southern cities, Ukrainian forces could be cut off from the sea. Several cities, including capital Kiev, northeastern Kharkiv and Mariupol in the southeast, continue to be attacked. The city of Kharkiv has been the biggest casualty of the Russian offensive. According to Ukrainian authorities, 21 people have been killed and several others wounded. Damage to government and civilian buildings is massive. Learning from the experience, the Lviv City Authority is bomb-proofing its museum building. Meanwhile, the two warring groups are holding one more round of talks in Brest, a city on the Ukraine-Belarus border. There is no change, though, in the Russian position. Moscow is still demanding the recognition of Donetsk and Luhansk and also Crimea to be recognized as Russian territory. Russia also wants Ukraine to be disarmed like Germany was after the Second World War. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky sent out a message asserting that his forces will defeat the Russian army. With no change in the stance of either side, there is a big question mark on the success of the peace talks. But for now, the people living with constant bombing, any hope is welcome. Bureau Report, Sansad TV. Amid the conflict, the United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday passed a resolution condemning the Russian attack in Ukraine. It also asked Russia to immediately withdraw its forces. 141 members voted in favor of the motion, while 5 opposed it. 35 countries, including India, abstained. Belarus, North Korea and Syria backed Russia. Cuba also supported Russia's position but did not vote in its favor. The UNGA was calling an emergency session for the first time since 1997. And close to 1 million people have left conflict zone Ukraine, says UN refugee agency UNHCR. The number is more than 2% of its population of nearly 40 million. The agency estimates that over 4 million people could leave Ukraine in the coming days. More than 50 lakh people have left for Poland, while over 1,16,000 people have reached Hungary. The International Criminal Court has opened an investigation into possible war crimes, crimes against humanity, and even genocide in Ukraine, dating back to 2013. It is also covering the present conflict sparked by the Russian invasion. 39 member states requested this investigation. The requests, also known as referrals, encompass past and present allegations of crimes committed on any part of Ukraine by any person. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a telephonic conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin on the Ukraine crisis on Wednesday. The conversation focused on the developments in Ukraine, also the evacuation of Indian students trapped in Kharkiv and other conflict zones. This is the second conversation since the 25th of February, when Prime Minister Modi urged an immediate end to violence. And the Prime Minister also chaired the 5th high-level meeting on the rescue mission for Indians stranded in Ukraine. He reiterated that bringing back Indians safely is the top priority of his government. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Union Minister Piyush Goyal were also present at the meeting, along with senior government officials. The Prime Minister has been holding these meetings since Sunday to intensify rescue efforts. And the Prime Minister on Thursday met some students who have returned from Ukraine. They shared their experiences with him. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, 18,000 Indian nationals have left Ukraine since India's first advisory. 30 flights have brought back 6,400 Indians so far under Operation Ganga after Russia ordered its troops into the region. The MEA said it is in touch with all countries, particularly Ukraine and Russia, at various levels. Meanwhile, Operation Ganga is in full swing to bring back stranded Indians back from Ukraine. With its multi-pronged evacuation plan, India has outpaced all other countries, including the United States of America, the UK, and also China. Here's a report. India has released contact numbers, advisories, and support mechanisms to bring back its citizens from war-torn Ukraine. Buses with the Indian flag are being given safe passage. To put things in perspective, China has postponed its evacuation plans. It has issued no travel advisories, and there are reports of its citizens being attacked in Ukraine. The United States of America has stated that it will not be able to evacuate its citizens. It is also asking citizens to carry food and other items for 2 days at the border. Britain has also clarified that it will not be able to provide increased support to its citizens stranded in Ukraine. In contrast, India has increased support on a war footing. The UK has also said British nationals should not expect increased consular support or help with evacuating in these circumstances. Similarly, the German embassy has been closed at Kiev, while the Indian embassy is still functional. Germany has said that it is not in a position to evacuate its citizens. The Indian government, meanwhile, has sent 4 union ministers to countries in Ukraine's neighborhood as special envoys to coordinate evacuations. Bureau Report, Sansad TV. Now moving to news from the pole-bound states. And while keeping his focus on the evacuation of Indian students stranded in Ukraine, the Prime Minister also addressed election rallies on Thursday in Chandoli and Jaunpur. He said the family-run parties had abandoned people of Purvanchal to their fate. He asserted that the BJP sees only the people as its ally and believes in a government that will bring them real development instead of making hollow announcements. Uttar Pradesh held 6th round of voting today for 57 assembly seats, which included Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath's constituency, Gorakhpur Sadar. There was much enthusiasm among the voters for the polling. The Chief Minister exercised his franchise in Gorakhpur. Besides Yogi Adityanath, key electoral contests in this phase involve Jay Pratap Singh, Satish Dwivedi, Swami Prasad Maurya, Congress State Unit President Ajay Kumar Allu. Also, 66 women are in the fray in this particular phase. Also, campaigning ended for the second and final phase of the assembly elections in Manipur. 22 seats in 10 districts will go to polls on Saturday. 92 candidates are in the fray, which include 2 women. 11 seats are reserved for scheduled tribes. As many as 8 candidates are contesting for the Wangkem seat, where the main contest is between the BJP and the Congress. The Election Commission ordered re-polling at 12 polling stations in 5 seats that went to polls in the first phase. A record turnout of 88.63% was recorded in this phase for 38 seats. Continuing with election news, Union Home Minister Amit Shah hit out at opposition parties in Azamgarh. He said earlier goons and mafia used to intimidate people, but today no one dares to even think of starting a riot. Samajwadi Party President Akhilesh Yadav assured an election rally in Varanasi that his party will fulfill the expectations of Shiksha Mitras, Anganwadi and also Asha workers. He said it will be his first decision if his party comes to power. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee campaigned for the Samajwadi Party in Varanasi. She alleged that the BJP is selling off the country's institutions, including railways, airports and banks, in the name of Achhe Din. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appealed to the industry to reduce dependence on imports and promote domestic manufacturing. Addressing a post-budget webinar, the Prime Minister said, Make in India campaign is the need of the 21st century India. The Prime Minister also added that industries should be vocal for local and mention Make in India in their product endorsements. Listen in.
भारत को मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पावर हाउस के रूप में देख रही हैं। हमारा मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर हमारी जीडीपी का 15% है, लेकिन मेक इन इंडिया के सामने इन्फिनिट पॉसिबिलिटीज हैं। हमें भारत में एक रोबस्ट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बेस बिल्ड करने के लिए पूरी ताकत से काम करना चाहिए।
The Consultative Committee of Parliament on External Affairs met on Thursday. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar briefed members on the government's efforts to evacuate Indians stranded in the war-hit areas. 9 members of the 21-member committee were present at this meeting. The External Affairs Minister said the discussion centered on the strategic and humanitarian aspects of the issue. There was also a strong and unanimous message of support for the efforts to bring back all Indians stranded in Ukraine. Opposition party members said the frank discussions took place in an amicable atmosphere, a reminder that on national interest, we are all Indians first and foremost. Meanwhile, Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla met the parents of students stranded in Ukraine on Thursday in Rajasthan's Kota city. He also had a telephonic call with the parents of a student who thanked External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar for the safe evacuation of their daughter from Ukraine. Speaker Birla said the government is making all-out efforts to evacuate Indian students stranded in Ukraine's war zone areas. News now from states. A budget of over 1 lakh crore for 2022-23 was proposed for the Jharkhand Assembly today. Most of it was for the health sector. There's been an increase of 20% for efforts to provide drinking water. The Chief Minister described it as the budget of the people. Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri launched the city gas distribution network in Aurangabad and Ahmednagar districts through virtual medium. He said the development of urban settlements ensures the development of the state as well as the country. Israel's Consulate General Kobi Shoshani met Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan in Madhya Pradesh. He appreciated the development works in the agriculture sector and the consequent increase in production. Time for a short break here, but on the other side, resolution to end plastic pollution by 2024. More details on the story on the other side when we return. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on the news. The Quad heads of state are holding a virtual meeting. They took part in the online meeting of the Quad on Thursday. The closed-door meeting of Prime Minister Modi, US President Joe Biden and the Prime Ministers of Japan and Australia is not open to the media. India has already said that the discussions will feature the Indo-Pacific region, while the United States has announced it will bring up the Ukraine issue. The present meeting was initiated by the US. It will be a continuation of the September 2021 summit that was held in Washington, D.C. Some more news from across the world. 175 nations endorsed a historic resolution to forge an international agreement to end plastic pollution by 2024. With this, governments will be looking to address the full life cycle of plastic, including its production, design and disposal.
The world produces 400 million tons of plastic every year. 300 million tons go into the waste dump and 11 million tons end up in oceans. The UN Environment Assembly on Wednesday adopted a historic resolution that gives hope for a strong global and comprehensive framework to check plastic pollution.
Progress on a legally binding global agreement on the plastic pollution is a truly welcome first step to implementation, and it will make a difference, one that shows again the true value of multilateralism.
The resolution establishes an intergovernmental negotiating committee which will start its work this year. The panel will frame a draft legally binding agreement by 2024 that will reflect alternatives to address the full life cycle of plastics, the design of reusable and recyclable products. It will also spell out global collaboration on technology, capacity building and technical cooperation. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Updates from the other parts of the world. Thousands of doctors took to the streets in Lima, demanding the resignation of Peru's health minister, who they say does not have the experience to lead the nation through the pandemic. The doctors were met with resistance from riot police and scuffles broke out. Doctors are angry that Hernan Condori, a doctor without a specialty, promoted a type of medicinal water not endorsed by science on his social media. Hong Kong will not have a whole-scale lockdown during a mass testing this month. Shoppers had been panic buying amid worries that the government will impose a lockdown in an effort to stem the spread of COVID-19. Hong Kong reported a record 55,513 infections on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the first freight train that arrived from mainland China brought anti-pandemic supplies. Retreating protesters in New Zealand set fire to tents, mattresses and chairs in a final act of defiance as the police broke up their demonstration. Authorities retook control of the Parliament grounds, although hundreds of protesters remained in nearby streets. This was the most significant use of force against the demonstrators opposing coronavirus vaccine mandates. The United States unveiled a national COVID-19 preparedness plan that spells out initiatives and investments to drive down serious illness and deaths from the virus, while preparing for potential new variants. It follows President Biden's Tuesday night State of the Union speech, in which he pointed to progress against the pandemic since last year. COVID-19 cases have fallen, but deaths are still elevated. The US is reporting an average 1,700 deaths each day. News now from the world of science and technology. An out-of-control rocket will slam into the far side of the moon on Friday. China is denying claims that it is from its launch of 2014. The object will carve out a crater on the moon. It may, however, take weeks or months to confirm the impact through satellite images. SpaceX was originally blamed for this piece of space junk. Since the moon has no atmosphere, it is defenseless against crashing meteors and asteroids, and even the occasional spacecraft. No weather means no erosion either, which is why impact craters last forever. And robotic dogs have taken over the Barcelona Wireless Fair Mobile World Congress. Companies are presenting robotic rovers that they say are of great use in many hazardous areas. The Spot robotic dog is commonly used by utility companies to inspect high voltage zones and other hazardous areas like construction sites with sensors. A cyber dog boasts of a top speed of 3.2 meters per second which is about the same speed as human walking. The manufacturer claims it is a supercomputer that processes data. Potential uses for it are helping the elderly or the disabled persons and also transporting objects. And time now for all the action from the world of sports. Let's begin with cricket today. Two important series begin tomorrow with lots of milestones coming up. India take on Sri Lanka in the first of the two test series beginning in Mohali tomorrow. The first test will mark the beginning of newly appointed full-time skipper Rohit Sharma's journey as the leader of the test side. Also, Virat Kohli is all set to become the 12th Indian to achieve the milestone of playing 100 tests. On the eve of the match, the former Indian captain said he never thought he would come this far and make this landmark appearance. Kohli till now has amassed 7,962 runs at a stellar average of over 50 in the longest format. The much-awaited Pakistan versus Australia Test Series 2 begins tomorrow at Rawalpindi. This would be the first time Australia will play in Pakistan in as many as 24 years. The first of the three tests, however, is threatened by rain. Both the teams had to cancel their practice sessions today, but the forecast is clear for Friday and most of Saturday, with showers likely on the last 3 days of play. Women's 50-over World Cup begins tomorrow in New Zealand. The tournament is an 8-team round robin involving India, also Australia, England, New Zealand, Pakistan, West Indies, South Africa and Bangladesh. Six-time champion Australia is again favoured to win the title. The first match tomorrow is between host New Zealand and the West Indies. India plays its first match on the 6th of March against Pakistan. The Indian shooting contingent won their second gold medal at the ongoing ISSF World Cup in Cairo, Egypt, after the women's air pistol team beat Germany 16-6 for the title. The team of Isha Singh, P. Niveta and Ruchita Vinirkar came up with the win in women's 10-meter air pistol team event after topping both qualification rounds to ensure that the squad made it to the gold medal match. And Davis Cup action returns to India for the first time since 2019 when the host Denmark tomorrow and the day after on the grass courts at Delhi's Gymkhana Club. At the draw ceremony ahead of the tie, Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman pulled the name of India's #1 singles player, Ram Kumar Ramanathan, to play Denmark's world number 824 Christian Sigsgaard in the opening match. Russian businessman Roman Abramovich has decided to sell Chelsea Football Club 19 years after buying the London side and promised to donate money from the sale to help victims of the war in Ukraine. He said, "I've always taken decisions with the club's best interest at heart." In fact, his statement was published by the reigning European and World Soccer champions on their website. And before we close the bulletin, a relook at the top stories of the day. Quad holds online meeting in the middle of Ukraine-Russia crisis. External Affairs Minister discusses Ukraine issue with MPs. Opposition expresses solidarity. The government rebuts reports of Indians taken hostage in Ukraine. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla meets parents of students stranded in Ukraine, says government making all-out efforts to bring them back safely. More than 1 million people have left Ukraine so far, says the UN refugee agency UNHCR. Moscow, meanwhile, says it is ready for talks with Ukraine. Make in India is the need of 21st century India, says Prime Minister Modi. Asserts that the world is looking at us as a manufacturing power. And voting concludes for the 6th phase in Uttar Pradesh. Key candidates include Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. So that's it from us in this bulletin. Thanks very much for your time. Good night.